For today's story, sometimes you just lose your temper, and sometimes you express that loss of temper by beating an autistic 7-year-old boy to death with a claw hammer. When all you have is a hammer, every problem seems like a nail. Let's get started with this story. A 36-year-old West Virginia man may spend the rest of his life behind bars for brutally killing his girlfriend's nonverbal, autistic 7-year-old son, being the little boy to death with a claw hammer. The Raleigh County jury on Thursday convicted Rashid Akeem Thompson on one count of first-degree murder in the slaying of Trayshawn Brown. In addition to the murder charge, Thompson was convicted of stabbing Trayshawn's mother, Felicia. So I guess the only thing he didn't only have a hammer, he also had a knife. So also stabbed mom. The jury found him guilty on one count each of attempted first-degree murder, malicious wounding, and child abuse resulting in death, plus 2 counts of domestic battery. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem. Mom is there to testify against you. Do you recognize the guy who stabbed you? It's that guy. He also beat my child to death with a hammer. That's a rough case, man. That is a rough case. Oof. As previously reported, a neighbor told investigators that they had awoken early in the morning hours of March the 18th to Felicia banging on her door. Felicia had sustained several stab wounds and asked the neighbor for help getting Trayshawn and her 2-year-old daughter from her apartment. The neighbor managed to get to the house and save the toddler, but fled upon seeing Thompson emerge from the kitchen. She said she returned to the apartment to get the older boy, but found Thompson repeatedly striking a part of the couch inside the living room of the residence using objects she could not identify at the time, but later identified as a hammer. The neighbor returned for a third time and told the 7-year-old boy was dead on part of the couch that Thompson was striking. Well, that seems to be some pretty good evidence against Mr. Thompson. She sees him swinging an object at a part of the couch. We later find the boy dead on that part of the couch. Might be the guy. Yeah. Prosecutors never uncovered a clear motive for the crime, but argued that Thompson stabbed Felicia multiple times and only turned his ire on Trayshawn after the boy's mother was able to get out of the house. And once she ran and was able to finally get to the neighbor's house, I think he abandoned that for fear of being discovered. He ran back to the apartment, and the one way he knew to take out his anger at that point was to attack the son. The Raleigh County prosecutor said, that's conjecture, it's the only explanation. Well, fortunately, we don't have to prove motive, right? It would be nice, in some sense, I suppose, to have a reason that this happened, but it's not something we have to prove. We just have to prove intent and act. And I think we got that covered. Thompson's defense team reportedly attempted to pin the boy's death on the mother, but investigators said there was no evidence she was involved. Yeah, knocking on the neighbor's door and being like, can you help my son and stuff, and here I am bleeding with stab wounds, doesn't really lend itself to the idea that, okay. While conviction of first-degree murder typically carries a sentence of life in prison, the jury granted mercy to Thompson for the capital offense, meaning he may be up for parole on that charge in 15 years. Okay. So apparently in this state, this was a death penalty case. And even though it was a death penalty case, not only did they not convict him of death, they apparently he has parole options in 15 years. I'm not really sure that he'll get parole in 15 years, but apparently that's possible here. So, okay. Betty Salvatore, who was Thompson's principal at Cranberry Elementary, repeatedly told the court that she took a day from work to ask the court for mercy. Okay. I know that something did happen. It did. But I don't know what led up to it. I don't know what caused it, but I can tell you that's not the man I know. It's just not the man I know. Your elementary school principal? What? Thompson's cousin and older brother also testified, reportedly telling the court that he would be very supportive and loving family to help him transition from prison should they ever be released. The prosecutor had reportedly requested the jury not grant mercy, but apparently the jury was feeling merciful that day. Okay. So Thompson will be sentenced on December 14th. When he'll be eligible for parole depends on whether the judge orders him to serve the sentences for mobile charge consecutively or concurrently. Well, I'm imagining the judge might think a little bit more about the consecutive option, since the 15 years seems a little light for the hammer death and stabbing. I don't know, man. I don't know. Hammering a 7-year-old autistic boy to death and then stabbing his mother with the attempted murder. 15 years. I don't know. Seems a little light. This is West Virginia, so I'm thinking maybe not so much. Thus, that brings us to the end of the story about the West Virginia man who hammered a 7-year-old boy to death and then stabbed the mom and might be out in as little as 15 years, depending on the temperament of the judge that day. So that's apparently a thing that's happening somehow in this case. I'm imagining the judge will go more for the consecutive options because I'm not really sure that I'm feeling like 15 years for the hammer death with the stabbing is the appropriate recompense. Not necessarily feeling that one. So we'll see how that develops, at least for a moment. That brings us to the end of discussion of this story.